You are fully capable. You can do it. And I truly mean that. I'm not just saying that. You are capable of achieving your goals. It might happen later than you want. It might happen later than expected. Things might happen that deter you, but remain consistent. Don't let life happen to you. Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the Is It in the Budget podcast. For this episode, we're going to be talking about taking control of your life. I'm joined today by a special guest and the man behind the camera, my friend Ephrem.
How's it going, everybody?
So before we get into this topic, which is something that I've been wanting to talk about for some time, I wanted to pass it over to you to introduce yourself, share a little bit more about your background. I think it's cool for people to now see who is standing behind the camera for every episode. So if you could share more about yourself, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, man. My name is Ephrem Yared. I'm a senior project engineer at a local general contractor building a lot of buildings here in Seattle. Outside of that, I do a lot of freelance work in design and photography through a company called Rhetoric. Yeah, man, I try my best to stay in control of my own life and avoid limitations whenever they pop up in front of me. I don't know where I'm going with that.
No, I mean, I think that's fair. Because I think the whole premise of this episode is on taking control of your life. And one of the things, as far as you just said, limitations, is resilience, like building resilience to issues that come your way. Because you can't control the course of life and all these things. And so as things are thrown your way, being able to move through them is part of taking control of your own life.
Yeah, I think the reason I got all weird and hesitant explaining what the side business stuff is because I don't like putting limitations on it. I feel like it started off as a freelance design company where I was doing graphic design and website design for people, and then I fell in love with photography, and then it slid into that, and then started picking up videography, and a bunch of different interests that I had started just kind of presenting themselves to me. And so I think it fits perfect with the topic at hand right now, where like if you don't take some level of agency in deciding what path you walk, then you're at the whim of the world, you know?
Yep.
And I think with Rhetoric, with my side company, I kind of don't take no for an answer with myself.
Yeah.
I jump off the cliff for whatever cliff it might be. I'm gonna try it, and if I fail, it's not really a failure because I learned something. You know what I mean?
And for this particular episode, this is really dedicated or for individuals who are feeling whether it's behind in life or you are not where you want to be, but you know where that is, even if you don't know where that is. And maybe you're somebody who's achieved some success, but you still have goals that you're striving for. So this episode really is meant to offer some tips and also some perspective using examples from our personal lives on the importance of and how to take control of your own life. So of course, before we begin really and dive deep, I want to recognize that of course, everybody has different backgrounds. Nobody grows up exactly the same. Ephrem and I didn't grow up together. Even if we did, we'd still have different experiences. As we talk here today, there's going to be tons of different things that we talk about that may or may not be applicable to you. Hopefully everything is applicable to you, but also recognizing that I myself have grown up with presumably less struggles than some other people. And so I do speak from a place of privilege sometimes with some of the topics and some of the perspectives that I do offer. Part of the reason I do have guests on this podcast is to be more well-rounded in my approach to many of these discussions. Now, with all that said, when it comes to taking control of your own life, I think one of the first things that you have to do is recognize where are you right now? Where do you want to be? And if you're not there yet, what is holding you back? Is that something that is within your control? Is that something that's out of your control? Because if it's out of your control, well, then you're probably a bit more limited in things that you can do. And so I think it's very important to focus on what is within my control and what power do I have to change my situation.
I think I don't know if it was a quote or a different podcast, but there's this guy, Ray Dalio. He was talking about the ingredients to success. It's a process, a 5-step process, and you kind of hit on two of the 5 steps in that process. First, obviously, is developing a goal. That, in some cases, is the hardest part of this process, is figuring out what the hell you want to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, step 1 is writing down a goal, actually figuring it out, and it comes in different forms, but establishing what intention you have. Then step number 2 is acknowledging the inevitable problems, hurdles, roadblocks that you run into. Mm-hmm. Step 3 is the diagnosis. It's figuring out exactly what are the mechanics of this hurdle, of this obstacle, how am I going to get past this? Are there ways to get past it? Step 4 is the design process. That's when you figure out the steps, you itemize it, you actually break it down and figure out the path forward. Step 5 is doing the work, actually following that plan. And then there's a bunch of mini versions of that cycle that go down as you're trying to implement the steps in that plan, but that's part of the game. If you want to be successful in something, then you have to entertain every single obstacle, jump every hurdle, and keep pushing forward.
Exactly. And I like how you mentioned setting goals, because setting goals is paramount. It's something that I know personally I've done for a majority of my life, and I still have a piece of paper from when I was in high school where I set a goal of saving $1,000. With goals, it's important to set SMART goals. And so SMART goals are I'm gonna try to remember the acronym. Specific, measurable, achievable,
Realistic.
I think realistic, and then time-based, time-bound, yeah. And I guess the purpose behind this is, let's say that you have a goal of saving more money. Is that specific? No. So an example, and is that measurable? Potentially. But an example of, let's say you wanted to save more money, a measurable goal could be, I want to save $1,000 in the next 3 months. And then, okay, boom. So you start there. And then from there, you would want to figure out how much money can you save each month. So looking at your income and your expenses and bills that you have, how much money is left over. And if that is $200, and let's say that, so this is a 3-month goal to save $1,000, and you can save $200 a month, that is no longer a realistic goal, because at most, so if you saved everything, you're going to save $600. So you could then spread that goal out so that it's a later date to make it realistic. But that's why it's important to set those type of goals, because if you set a goal of saving $1,000 in 3 months and you don't hit it, then it can make you lose motivation in attaining that goal. And you could say, well, it's not going to happen, or it didn't work out this time, so now I don't know if I'm capable of doing this. Where in fact you are capable. It's just a matter of making sure that that was a realistic goal to begin with. And so for me, with all of my financial goals, all of my business goals, I set a combination of like realistic goals, but then there's also some of my stretch goals. Like, for example, this year, one of my goals is to make $100,000 through my business. That is something that I'm actively trying to work on to see, because in my mind, that is realistic. I think based off, I made basically a third of that last year. And I think that, okay, tripling, while that's
have people tapping your pockets now, bro, speaking on the numbers.
While that's a stretch, like it's a stretch goal, but it's something that I can push myself forward towards. And so even if I don't achieve it, I'm going to do better than I did last year. Mm-hmm. And that in and of itself is going to be success for me.
Ooh, I like that you brought that up. There's a couple things in there that I think are important to circle back on. But before we started rolling, you mentioned your mindset around success and failure, mm-hmm. and the way that you kind of have tossed the term failure in the trash can.
Yeah.
You want to speak on that a little bit? Because I feel like you hit that on the head.
Thank you. Yeah. So before we started rolling the camera here, I was telling Ephrem that for me, when I think about my life and I think about goals that I have, and I think about whether it's my business or investing or work, I think in terms of to what extent will I succeed rather than what if I fail? Because what if I fail is just not an option. Failure is not an option. And I don't want to sound, corny or cheesy, but for me, it's just really never been an option. When I started my business 3 years ago, at first I thought, what if this doesn't succeed? And then I quickly just changed to, okay, how much will it succeed? Like, how far will I go? Because that's within my own control. And I think that for everybody, whether it's wanting to obtain a job, or they're wanting to save more money, or they're wanting to network and connect with more people, or travel more, or whatever it is, it's to what extent will I be able to make this possible? Am I going to be able to travel to 3 countries a year, or maybe it's just 1 country a year? Not what if this doesn't work out?
Something important to pull from that is that when you set a goal, a specific goal, that's not your whole intention. There's a greater intention behind setting a goal in the first place. And we can keep it in the context of money for now, but I feel like it applies to everything. If you set a goal to save up $1,000, mm-hmm. the intention behind that is to become more financially responsible, to learn additional ways to make money, to find the discipline in yourself to actually stack the money aside and not fall victim to your own vices.
Right.
Now, if you save up $900 and you don't hit that $1,000 mark, and you walk away from that attempt thinking you failed, you're missing the bigger picture.
Right.
You saved $900.
Yep.
You're still doing the thing that you're trying to do.
Exactly.
You might not have hit the mark, but I think the overarching thing here is no matter what you're attempting to do, if you learn something or if you build stronger habits in something in the attempt to achieve a goal, you walked away with the win.
Exactly.
And you're not walking away because it's continuous. It never stops.
Yeah.
It's just always going to keep going.
I like that. And I think that's a great way of thinking, because I know in the first episode of this season of the podcast, I filmed with my brother, Trickamore. And one thing that I mentioned was, or a question that I raised for everybody to think about is, what are you doing today to put yourself in a different position than you were yesterday? And I believe that follows kind of that same line of thinking, because I have a goal currently of losing weight. The goal was to lose, I think it was between 20 and 30 pounds.
You got
that is
30 pounds to lose? What the?
And that is it's a big goal. And for basically a month, I didn't lose anything, but I was exercising consistently, which was a change from not exercising consistently. So I was like, okay, I've achieved this, where now I've built this habit of being able to exercise consistently. Again, what else needs to change? Diet. And so now I have begun to lose weight. I haven't hit my goal yet, but I'm making strides every day towards doing that, where even though it's far out, I'm still keeping the vision, because progress is being made. And so for anybody listening, you could be reading a book and just wanting to read more. Read a page a day. Or start there. If you want to save money, recognizing that not everybody has the same ability to save. Recognize where you're at. Again, we talked about this in the beginning. Figure out how much you can save, and then start from there. If, let's say you want to save $100 a month, but you can only save $50, that's still something. You're still going to make progress doing that. You might hit your goal later than expected, but you're still going to hit it eventually. It's just a matter of starting and staying consistent, because life rewards consistency. I don't know a single person in my life who has failed through being consistent. Even if you do miss the mark at some point, life will reward you as long as you remain consistent.
Yeah, I think another piece here that I feel like a lot of people overlook is whether or not, if you're trying to achieve a goal right now, and it's something specific, but actually trying might have been a strong word. If you want to achieve a goal, but you're not trying, I'm guessing you probably tried to achieve some goals in the past, and you might not have written them down in the SMART goals format, and you might not have put yourself in the right position to actually achieve that goal. But I feel like a lot of people get put off very early on in their lives when pursuing some sort of achievement or some sort of goal. Yeah. I think that if you don't acknowledge that you set yourself up for failure, and you probably aren't a failure, you probably just set yourself up to meet an expectation of yourself that was not achievable, was not time-based, was not measurable. It wasn't smart. You know what I mean? Like, I think it deters people from attempting new things. Yeah. And that is the thing that kills me the most, is people who are like feeling stagnant, and I'm definitely guilty of this myself, but feeling stagnant in one arena of life or another and not really changing at all. It's like you probably have some little unpacked trauma from back in the day that you haven't really resolved with yourself, because if you're not even willing to put one foot in front of the other, then why do you expect this thing to happen for yourself?
Exactly. You are capable. You are smart. I think reminding yourself of that every single day, and then remembering to make those steps, to make those strides towards your goals, is paramount. Because I know I get frustrated when talking with at least with my siblings or with friends or whatever it is, and they have a goal, but then they're not doing anything about that goal. And so it's like, okay, well, even looking at my personal life, because I think I was telling you before, one of my goals, this has been for like 3 years, is to improve my range of motion, improve my flexibility. Because I used to be an athlete in high school. And it was a long time ago, I guess.
You can't touch your toes.
I used to laugh at the thought of not being able to touch my toes, because I was doing basketball and I was doing track. And so I felt like an achievement to be able to touch my toes. Now, man, I struggle with flexibility, and I've been trying to improve it, but I haven't really been trying, because the way to improve that is through stretching. Do I stretch consistently? No. Why would I expect to improve my flexibility if I'm not stretching consistently? Another example, I had a exam that I needed to take for a certain technology platform, and I knew the date of the exam. I knew that I needed to study. Did I study? Yes, but Did I study consistently? No. And as a result, I didn't feel like I put in the work to pass that exam, and I didn't pass. And that's just another example of when you don't plan to succeed and when you don't put in the work, you can't expect changes. If I want to lose weight, I have to exercise. If I don't, why would I expect to lose the weight? If I don't study, why would I expect to pass the exam? If I don't build a budget, or if I don't automate my savings, how can I expect to save more money? It's partly building habits, but also taking initiative. And based on something that you mentioned earlier, I also want to, I think one limiting factor is catastrophic thinking, of thinking, oh, I'll never be able to do this. I'll never be able to obtain this job. I'm underqualified. Or I'll never be able to save this money based on how the past 10 years of my life have gone, or the past year of my life have gone. And I think if you can work towards stopping that through seeking out help, whether it's through mentorship or through free resources or using the internet, making any step versus sitting in that same place that you're at and having those thoughts is not the same as having those thoughts and then trying to create like a meaningful plan around improvement. And I think that's where it starts, because life is hard. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say life is easy, or that, and I'm not also gonna try to articulate that I'm perfect, because I'm not, and I make mistakes still. But consistency, again, consistency, and then I don't want to say effort, because I do think that many people do give effort. I don't think everyone does, but I think it starts with those two areas.
Yeah,
and I don't know if that's controversial.
I don't think it's controversial at all. I think I was having a conversation with a good friend last night, actually. I don't know what quote, like where this is from, but it's some, I think, like a fantasy book. We're just talking about picking up game from any resource you can find, and apparently there's some fantasy book out there that dropped this gem on him. It was something along the lines of, the most important step to take is not the right one, it's the next one. And I've tried to apply that to my life, that concept, in the past. I think that's the first time I heard it just like bundled up in a nutshell. But
yeah,
I think you said the magic word a couple times: consistency. It doesn't matter if you mess up. And I mean, back to earlier in the conversation, you're not failing, you're learning, and you're progressing. It's that next step forward. That's the right step, is to keep trying and to keep attempting things. But the wrong step is not moving at all.
Exactly.
That's like unequivocally the wrong thing to do.
And that reminds me, so there's this movie, it's called The Most Violent Year, with Oscar Isaac and Jessica Chastain as, I think, the two leads, and one of my favorite movies. And in it, I highly recommend watching it. One of the quotes, my favorite quote really from that movie and through life, Oscar Isaac, at one point he says, when trying to obtain a business deal, somebody asks him, why is this so important to you? And he says, when you are the most scared to jump, that is exactly when you jump. Otherwise, you end up staying in the exact same spot your entire life. And I think that, because it's like when I heard that, I was like, ooh, write that down. Because it's applicable to literally everything. Whether you're, again, I'm using the example of a job, or when it comes to money. If you're scared to apply for a job, you can't expect to obtain it if you don't apply. You never know what might happen. I think even with my current job, I didn't expect to get it, because I studied finance in college. I work for a technology consulting firm. I knew nothing about tech. I told that to the people who I spoke to at the company. I was like, I don't think I'm a good fit, because I know nothing about what you guys just talked about, and I just don't feel like I would be successful here. And they said, oh, like give it a shot. It doesn't matter. So I didn't even really apply. They just kind of like threw my name in that. And then I ended up having some conversations. I ended up interviewing, and then I obtained that job. And now I've been there for over 4 years. Had I never had those conversations and gone out of my way to go to meetings to meet these people who worked at this company, then none of that would have happened. And so I went out of my comfort zone. And same thing with Muay Thai kickboxing, which I started and then kind of stopped. I've always wanted to learn about boxing. And then it took me a very long time, but then I finally took that leap and I finally signed up for a class and did it. Was I uncomfortable? Yes. Was I not as skilled as the other people there? Yes. Did I get punched in the face for the very first time? Yes. So as a result, I learned something about humility. I also learned about the importance of stepping out of my comfort zone. I also built a skill. I mean, granted, my range of motion is not as great as it used to be. And so if you run up on me, I mean, I'm just kidding. But it's just really to encourage, again, that quote of, if you don't take that leap, if you don't make that move, if you don't create that budget, if you don't reach out to that person, or reach out to that recruiter, or if you're trying to obtain business, reach out to that potential lead.
Yeah.
You can't expect changes without really acting for change. Mm-hmm. Because the whole premise of this episode, again, is taking control of your own life. And to take control, it requires you to put in, I don't want to say put in the work, but really you have to care more about your success than anybody else will. Your family can't care more about it. Your partner or your spouse can't care more about it. You have to, because it's your life. You have to make those changes in order to see the change.
I think another piece, it was nice to hear about the Muay Thai thing. I really didn't know how that started for you, but I feel like what you described is really important here. We've been talking about smaller and more quick turnaround type goals throughout this conversation, but there's a congruence between these small things that you can achieve to build towards something and the larger goals of like finding a career, getting back in shape, or like bigger life, like more impactful things for your life. And the only reason why the concepts stay true through both small and big goals is because they're made up of the same ingredients. It's the same atoms: consistency and humility. Because that's another thing. You can't be a master at anything without being a pupil first. Whether you have an actual teacher or you're teaching yourself, you're always going to start at square one. Mm-hmm. You're always going to crawl before you walk. And I think that takes a level of humility. And I think if you put yourself, or you found yourself in a position where a lot of people around you expect only the best, or you only expect the best from yourself, you gotta humble yourself. You gotta take the cool shades off. And a great example is, we have a buddy who he up and decided to start DJing. DJ Slim, that's my guy.
Yeah.
I know for a fact, like, my guy had to hit a couple of smaller circuit venues first and humble himself before making it to the real parties down in Tacoma and up in Seattle and all these things. And he's like the coolest dude. Like, he's a cool kid, but like he don't man. But he chose to humble himself to pursue a goal, and now he's succeeding. He was succeeding from the start as soon as he jumped off that cliff.
Exactly.
But you know what I mean? Like, right now, if I were to, like, perfect example is my photography stuff. I did not get a gig anywhere. And it started as a passion. It started as a hobby. But as soon as I decided I'm going to start making money off this thing, I'm doing senior photos. I'm going to, like, a random, like, event and snapping flicks for people. And, like, it started off with no money at all. Like, I'm just showing up and doing this thing. And I had to humble myself and take pictures I don't want to take. You know my photography stuff. I don't like the hunky-dory, like, family photos thing, but, like, I did it to learn the entire trade, and I had to humble myself and go, I'm not going to be some, eccentric artist type without establishing something and understanding what I'm getting myself into. And I feel like with any goal, you have to start from square one. Yep. You can't like, just because you're doing well at work, or, you have a house and, a nice car and a good situation, doesn't mean you can't walk into a Muay Thai studio and start from square one. Yeah. Like, it feeling like a square while you're doing it. But you obviously have a goal. Humble yourself. You have to start from somewhere to achieve it. You ain't going to be perfect from the jump.
And I think a word that jumps out at me as you're saying all this is resiliency. The ability to fight through, I guess, struggle and through challenges is extremely important, because our friend, Kyrie Watson, Slim the DJ, I'm sure that he faced challenges in starting up his side hustle, which I would argue is now a business, with DJing. And I've also faced a series of challenges with growing my own. I put out a post that emphasized transparency, as at least on my end, where yes, I post a lot of successes, or me hitting financial goals, or obtaining new deals. But for every deal, there's probably 3 that I didn't get. Mm-hmm. There's one of my largest goals has been to work outside of Washington, to be invited to lead a workshop in a different state. I wanted to travel to go to a different state and lead a workshop to, whether it's students or adults or whatever. I finally got the opportunity to do that a couple years ago, where I got invited by an organization to come out to Oregon to speak at, I believe it was the University of Oregon, for a conference for students. I ended up being uninvited due to cost for my fee. And I try to like pride myself on being very flexible with the fees that I charge and let people know like, okay, nothing I say is fixed. But that still happened. And that was I don't want to say it was heartbreaking, but it was tough because I was like, I got really excited because I was finally about to achieve this goal a lot sooner than I thought I would. And then it just didn't happen. And it was very sudden. But there's been tons of different other instances like that where I thought I was going to get this deal because the person I spoke with seemed really excited when we talked. And then boom, email comes a week later saying, we've decided to move forward with a different organization or a different candidate or whatever it may be. Same thing has happened with jobs. And being able to take those in stride and say, okay, this doesn't define the success of my business. This doesn't define my future, and move on. Because since then, I've gone on to sign my largest contract ever last year, and then come to this year, and now I've signed my next largest contract ever. And so I'm still hitting goals. I haven't hit all of them. Being able to say, okay, I didn't achieve this. How am I going to bounce back? Not wallowing in it. Mm-hmm. Because we're all going to fail sometime. If you're able to learn from mistakes or learn from those things that are, again, out of your control, then that in and of itself is success. Mm-hmm. When it comes to kind of like taking control of your, I don't really like the word destiny. I'm not even going to use it, actually. Taking control of your own life and your ability to achieve goals. Resiliency. Mm-hmm. And being resilient and being able to move forward. Yes, it's tough. You got to move forward because, again, nobody else, if you're not going to do it, who's going to do it? Mm-hmm. Like nobody, I mean, I don't want to say nobody can do your homework for you because I guess, but you have to put the work in. Yeah. And I've had the opportunity and the luxury really of speaking to people from different ages through my work, from like students to people in their 60s, people from different socioeconomic backgrounds. And I'd say the one thing that I've noticed in everybody, where everybody gets really excited and then you start to see changes, is really just the process of building out a plan. One of the things that we do in all of the meetings that I have is we talk about what are your financial goals, and not really just financial goals, but what are your life goals? And then also what challenges are you facing in your life right now? And then when it comes to the ones that they can remove, so whether it's overspending or whatever it is, building a plan towards, okay, I want to start saving more money. Okay, this is how much you can save. This is how much you will have saved in a year if you stick to this. And in addition to that, you can still go off and go bowling or go out to eat with your family and things like that. Being able to look really into the future and see like, okay, there's hope. Like what I want to achieve, I can achieve. Might it happen later than I anticipated? Sure. Maybe it happens sooner, but it's going to happen. And I think it's just a matter of, a lot of times it just comes down to building that plan. And so for actionable steps, if you're trying to work towards taking control of your own life, let's say that you're not where you want to be right now. Yeah. I think one, recognizing, okay, where do you, again, I said this at the beginning, where do you want to be? What steps can you take? What actionable steps can you take towards achieving those goals? And then write it down. I think that having your goals visualized is super helpful, whether you want to buy a car or you want to buy a house, whatever it is. Putting up a picture on the wall or writing that down somewhere where you can be reminded of it every day, I think is super important, because also you begin to envision it. Like you begin to see yourself in that house. You begin to see yourself in that car. And things just begin to seem more realistic and more reachable than they do like a fantasy. Mm-hmm.
There's also the benefit of being your own accountability partner.
Oh yeah.
I think if you write your goals down, or you find a way to have it unavoidably present in front of you at all times, mm-hmm. at least every day, like maybe it's in your bathroom or it's sitting on your fridge or whatever it might be, then you won't forget. I feel like all of us fall victim to filing our goals or our thoughts, our emotions into the back of the filing cabinet, and then you feel so convicted about something, and then you tell yourself this has got to change, whether it's with a relationship or with your job or your financial literacy or whatever it might be. And then you just forget about it because the Super Bowl's on tomorrow and I got to go grab some wings from the store and I got this and then boom. And then you end up forgetting you even thought about this thing 2 months down the road when the same thought kind of circles back to the top of your mind. And that's why I feel like it, as corny as it might sound to some people, you have to write it down. You have to like really put it out, you know what I'm saying, in front of yourself so that you can't deny it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I actually had a question for you. So you were talking about that experience with Oregon, and actually for the whole conversation, we've kind of been talking about the pursuit of goals from a point of stagnation, like when you're not feeling like you're moving forward and you want to learn, you know, taking that first step. I think in a lot of cases, a lot of people who are listening right now, especially if they're interested in the, you know, financial literacy side of things, they probably are pursuing a lot of goals and they're already taking those steps. And in the context of the Oregon situation where things didn't necessarily work out, but you had this goal, and we all seen it on College Money Habits, how many goals, you know, they change every month and you have new things coming up, and they're not necessarily changing in concept, but they're changing in target, or they're changing in, you know, specificity. How do you deal with juggling goals? How do you deal with, like, say with this Oregon situation, I know that you're pursuing these opportunities in other states, especially with going down to Atlanta and things like that, but you shelved that one for a while, or maybe potentially you didn't. Are you juggling these all at the same time, or are you, you know, prioritizing? How does it work in your mind?
Yeah.
And how do you keep them from going stale?
So I do juggle them all at the same time. I will prioritize kind of like a few things. Sometimes I might prioritize all things. It can be challenging. Really, it comes back to that question of what did I do today to better myself? Like, what did I do today to put myself again in a different position? Because I have all these goals, I have to do something every day. Otherwise, there's no way that I'm going to achieve them. Mm-hmm. I will admit that there is a goal that I've had for some time that I haven't put really the effort in. And so as a result, I haven't seen,
touching your toes.
I haven't received. Well, there's that. And then there's also, I want to be featured in an article. However, and I've been featured in an article before. I've been published before. But I want more. And am I reaching out to reporters? No. Am I...
You're trying to get that Forbes 30 under 30. That's what it is.
Because I'm not putting in the work, I haven't expected to see results from that. But with other things, there's a big thing that I'm working on right now that I've been working on for several months that hopefully I'll be able to announce soon. Maybe by the time this episode comes out, I would have announced it. And that is something that I work on every week without fail. Sometimes it's every day of a given week. There's other goals that I work towards something every single day. That way I never lose sight of my goals.
Do you ever feel overwhelmed by your goals?
Oh yeah.
How do you manage that?
Sometimes I just take a step back and say, okay, like, am I doing too much? Because I do think, and one thing I talked about in the episode with Shukma, my brother, is like taking time to enjoy life as well. Yeah, sure, I have all these goals, but I also it's good to take a step back. And my girlfriend helps with that as well, Sesson. And yeah, I get overwhelmed. I get burnt out. And right now I have an upcoming partnership that'll last a few months, and I'm trying to obtain others. And then on top of that, I'm also trying to relocate to another state, and I'm also managing this new purchase of a home. And so there's a lot of things going on right now that's competing for my attention, while also trying to maintain a relationship, and then also not maintain, but put energy into my relationship. And then also
work a full-time job too.
Exactly. Yeah. There's so many things, and so it's making sure to recognize, okay, I have all these things on my plate. Do I need additional help in any areas? Because I have an issue asking for help. And yeah, it's hard. I mean, I'll say it's hard. It's hard managing this business. Also, I mean, the podcast, and then working, and then
social media, making graphics, doing all that. Yeah.
There's so many things, and ultimately, like, something gets sacrificed. There's no way to do it all as an individual, and so something has to take a back seat eventually, and then I'll bring it back to the top of the stack later on. But I think one of the biggest challenges has been because thinking of podcast episode ideas takes effort. Filming takes effort. Editing takes effort. Figuring out what clips I want to post takes effort. And on top of that, I still got to work. I still have to reach out to businesses to get deals. I still have to create presentations and workshops. And so none of that stops. And so I had to tell myself, like, if I don't do it, who's going to do it? I can hire somebody to do it, but for right now, if I don't do it, it's not happening. And so I have to do it. Mm-hmm. And again, coming to that, like, failure is not an option. So that helps me stay motivated. You talk about being your own accountability partner. I think that's extremely important because nobody else knows about all these things. So I have to hold myself accountable and say, okay, like, what are you doing today towards that podcast? You didn't do anything today? Okay, what are you going to do this week? What are you going to do this month? And making sure that I keep sight of all those goals and I don't get discouraged because maybe I'm not achieving the same success as some of my peers in certain areas, or maybe I'm not where I want to be. Like I haven't achieved the social media growth that I want. Okay. What else have I done though? Like where am I this year compared to where I was last year?
I mean, you circled around it, but I think another important thing is understanding. I mean, you mentioned it, understanding that you can't do everything alone.
Yeah.
The thing you were circling around is building a tribe, having not just being your only accountability partner, but having people that you, a household full of love with people that actually, you know, they're supporting you in the pursuit of those goals. I mean, you mentioned Sesson. She's been on the pod. She's amazing.
Yeah, and there's you. Like this podcast wouldn't be possible without you. So
yeah, I think like thank you. But my girl, shout out Juju down in Cape Town, she saw this list of things that I was trying to do every day. It was like, gotta wake up, make a healthy breakfast, get my ass to the gym, go to work. And my work, I'm in construction. It starts early. So all this is happening in the wee hour, like 4 a.m. into it. Then I'm busting my tail at work and then get home, get that second workout in, make sure I eat some, get some protein in my diet. And then, I got to edit these photos. And then, I got to pull up to this thing and I have to maintain my relationships and go see my mentor and my mentee and do all. And she's looking at me going, why do you think you can achieve, like, not even achieve all these things, but make it through the day and do it again the next? You're getting to bed at 10 p.m., waking up at 4 a.m., trying to pack a million. And she held me accountable to my own limitations. And I feel like we're both ambitious people, and there's a lot of ambitious people out there that kind of don't even want to entertain the idea that they have limitations. We can't do everything.
We can't.
We have to prioritize. We have to decide. But an important thing to have is a tribe around you that can support you in the things that you can't achieve by yourself and can check you when you are overdoing it or losing yourself in the process. Yeah. And I think that's the last piece to the whole, charcuterie board of how to achieve your goals is making sure you have your people around you.
Yeah, I think
that you can trust.
Having support is important. That was very powerful. Yeah, and I think in closing, as we wrap up the episode, again, for individuals who feel like they're not quite where they want to be, who are working towards goals or maybe feel like they're stuck, recognize where you're at. Again, try to write down goals that you have. They might start as general goals, but then you want to make them specific and measurable and time bound. And also find an accountability partner. If you don't want it to be yourself, find a friend or a family member or somebody. You have options. Also, one of the things I get frustrated by is the internet exists. Most people have access to the internet. If you have a question, Google it. If you want to, because I've Googled so much.
That's the realest advice.
when I learned how to start investing, that was through Google. If you feel stuck when it comes to obtaining a job or investing or budgeting, how do you start a budget? How do you invest? What are the risks of investing?
YouTube University.
Exactly. There's YouTube. There's Google. There's so many resources, and so taking initiative is a huge part of everything. All of these things that we've talked about is in terms of taking control of your own life, also reminding yourself that like you are fully capable. You can do it. And I truly mean that. I'm not just saying that. You are capable of achieving your goals. It might happen later than you want. It might happen later than expected. Things might happen that deter you, but remain consistent. Don't let life happen to you.
Whew. That's a bar.
I will hand it over to you for the last word. Or we can end it here.
I didn't even know what to say. Hold on. You just got me. That was a little mic drop moment. Don't let life happen to you.
I want to thank you again for joining me on this episode and for all of your help.
Of course.
With season 1 and then also now season 2 with helping to film and then also helping to curate ideas and just be part of that tribe that you talked about with helping me and my business. I appreciated your perspectives today. And I hope that for any of you that listen to this episode that you do come away with it feeling a bit more confident in how you can take control of your own life and how you can build a plan or build habits towards achieving all of your goals. And now with that, I normally end the episodes by asking you to think about, is it in the budget? But for this episode, I want you to ask yourself, every day, what did I do today to put myself in a different position than I was the previous day? And remember to compare yourself always to who you were and what you've achieved and not what somebody else has achieved. Don't compare yourself to me. Don't compare yourself to Ephrem or somebody else in your community or your circle. Compare yourself to yourself and track your success through your own means and through your own lenses.
That's not as catchy as "Is it in the budget?" We'll end on that.
And so with that, I hope that you have an amazing day and best of luck with everything that you hope to achieve.